Hey, for something that I know a lot of you have been asking me about. As you guys know, I have been very, very behind on the Vampire Diaries. I tried to do what I could to keep up, but I just got very, very behind. And because of that, I figured, alright, I'll just do a very long review. But I'm not going to be reviewing every episode that has aired so far. There's just no possible way I can do that in one video. If I did that, this video would be like an hour long, so I'm definitely not going to do that. Instead, I will review episodes 8 through 11 in this episode, and then episodes 12 and 13 will be separate reviews if you guys want that. But let's just get into these episodes, because as you guys know, I've really been enjoying this season so far. I think, this has been, in my opinion, the most solid season since season 5, honestly. Season 6 was good, but it was, if you guys know, I liked a lot of aspects of season 6, but I also thought season 6 was way too long and was very messy at points and just had a lot of storylines I didn't care about. Season 7 was the worst the show has ever been. It felt pointless. I was ready to drop the show. If it hadn't been for this season, I would have dropped the show. It's that simple, but I've really been enjoying the season so far. So when we get an episode like episode 8, it really does disappoint me, because episode 8 is just not a bad episode. It's just more of the same. There's nothing we haven't seen before that happens in this episode. You know, in this episode, both Stefan and Damon now have turned their humanity switches off, and they're both antagonists, and it was cool to see these two both be evil and both be, you know, both be completely just savage and, you know, brutalizing these victims. Things like that. It was cool to see that. But we've seen this a million times. You know, we've seen Damon be evil the entire season. We've seen Stefan be good the entire season, but we have seen him be evil before. This isn't anything shocking, and they don't really do anything new with it. They go to this doctor who they basically compel and try to use as their next victim, because Cade is getting very hungry. He needs a new sacrifice, and they think of this doctor that they might use, and eventually they do end up biting her, so not really much happens there. There's also this girl, Violet, and that is definitely the more interesting storyline. It has to do with Caroline. Caroline in these 2 episodes, I really thought was really great. I really like what they do with Caroline here. A lot of people say that Caroline is a weak human character, female character, and that definitely does change over these next 3 episodes, which I thought she did a really good job in. But this episode in particular, we have Sybil, and Sybil is now a teacher of, she's teaching a history class, and obviously, Caroline does not for a second believe that Sybil actually is a teacher. She knows she probably compelled mostly everyone in the school. How Sybil did this, I have no idea. It's not really explained very well, but essentially Sybil wants Caroline to give her this bell that was created by, Henry Maxwell, who's Matt and Peter's ancestor, and basically they want to get this bell, basically because they were trapped in, you know, Sybil and Celine learned of this while traveling the area looking for souls for Cade and got the witches burn the stake, and they were trapped in the armory and vaults when they lured Henry through the underground tunnels and he died of starvation, and they essentially want her to ring the bell, basically, because it consists of 3 parts: the bell, the staff of Arcadius, and the striker. They need the bell in this episode, and basically she goes looking for the bell in the garage of her house, and we eventually realize that the bell is, which was in a cool twist, I definitely did like this, the bell actually is actually where Elena's father used to work, which was interesting to see. Elena actually does come back in the story in a big way in this episode, and I actually really did like that. I like the way that turned out. Basically, we found that it was discovered in 2009 after Elena's parents' car went into the lake, and it's now in Caroline's garage. So I thought that was kind of cool to see. But everything going on with Sybil in this episode, I know I've praised Natalie Kelly before. I think she's a good actress, but something happened with her in these 2 episodes, because her accent goes in and out throughout these 2 episodes, and it's very, very distracting, I have to say. Celine actually took it. She left a note for Sybil to taunt her, and obviously, that, again, I could have told you where that was going from the moment that plot started. I've seen it so many times. Matt in this episode as well, he's annoyed with his father for having abandoned him, and even more so when he discovers that he's actually the one who got rid of the bell he threw in the lake under Wickery Bridge. So really not much going on here. And then the ending of this episode isn't shocking at all. Basically, Oh yeah, there's also this girl Violet who they do decide to turn into who basically does essentially turn into a vampire, but that's not till later in the episode. She turns into a vampire in episode 9, not episode 8, but she's introduced in this episode, and I like seeing Sammy Hanratty. I find her attractive and everything, but again, not really much there. And then the ending isn't shocking at all because, surprisingly, to the surprise of no one, Stefan is now a Ripper, which is not surprising at all. We've seen the storyline a million times, so yeah, not really much plot progression in episode 8, but that definitely does change with episode 9, because episode 9 starts off and it is a relatively slow episode, but there's so much good stuff that happens towards the end that sets up episode 10 so well, and I really did love what happens at the end of episode 9, because through a lot of this episode, Damon is a bell striker, so Sybil makes him return to Mystic Falls to give it to her, and he does return. He realizes he can't tell Sybil no, so he ultimately denies her the striker and locks her up. And this is the most interesting part of this episode, is that Damon finally does get a brain in this episode. He finally stops listening to Sybil, and he realizes that he can tell her no, which was incredible to see. I love this revelation that Damon realizes that he could have just told her no all along. He could have rebelled against her. So when he's finally given the chance, he actually takes it. He finally decides that he is going to say no, which I really did like seeing. And because he realized in the last episode that he actually does have enough humanity to care about Elena. So he has his humanity back in this episode, which was awesome to watch. I really did like seeing Damon have his humanity back. It was awesome to see that happen. But we also see in this episode, Stefan actually does turn Violet into a vampire, which really isn't that big of a deal. I didn't really see much going on there. But Bonnie returns this episode, and that really is the big thing here, because Bonnie and Enzo, as we know, they went out of town, basically just on a romantic getaway, and they finally return back in this episode, and basically, Bonnie she feels very guilty because she's human and Enzo's vampire, and she doesn't want him to be a vampire forever. She wants them to be able to grow old together because, Enzo's really the only person who really seems to care about her, and actually they works really well with her. As we know, these two got together by fate. They got together because no one else really cared about them. No one cared about Enzo. No one cared about Bonnie. These two just happened to find each other, and they found each other very well. She wants to stick by Enzo, and she decides that instead of her, obviously she can't become a vampire. She wants to, but she can't because she just doesn't. There's no possible way for that to happen. She instead is going to try to give Enzo the cure. So yes, the cure storyline is back. One of the best storylines in this entire show, in my opinion. You guys know how much I love the cure storyline. They went in some really cool directions with it in the last time they did it, and I'm glad that it's back in this episode. So yes, the cure is back, and she plans on giving Enzo the cure to essentially turn him back into a human so they can actually grow old together, which I thought was definitely a very interesting twist. I really did like the way that was done. But Celine in this episode, she's determined to assemble the bell herself and reveals that can actually kill sirens, and that she wants to kill Sybil as a part of righting her past misdeeds. So she teams up with Dorian to do so, who Dorian, as we know, is working with Alaric, who Alaric is nowhere to be found in these 4 episodes. I don't know why he's not there, but he's not. Alaric is not here at all, which is very strange to see. But basically, also Bonnie didn't want to become a vampire because she knows her life is tied to Elena, and she doesn't want Elena to become a vampire either, and she doesn't know how that's going to affect her. So then we get to the end of the episode, though, which the ending of this episode is awesome. Sybil ends up chained up by Damon, and she uses her powers to return Damon's humanity to him, and basically he finally gets all his memories back, which was amazing to see. It's this incredible revelation where he finally gets all his memories back. He realizes all the terrible things he's done, all the people that he has wronged, and that perfectly sets up episode 10. But the other big thing is that Caroline actually turns down Stefan in this episode because she realizes how uncaring he is, how not human he is, just how he doesn't seem to be acting like himself. The Stefan that she fell in love with, this is not the same Stefan. So she turns down their engagement and basically tells him, look, I'm not getting back together with you until you get your humanity back. I'm not going to do this. And I thought it was a very well done scene. I thought it was a very bold move for Caroline's part. We don't usually see this very tough side of Caroline, but we saw that here, and I thought that was incredibly well done. I really did like the way that was done. But that perfectly sets up episode 10. Which, episode 10, Nostalgia's a Bitch, is among the best episodes the show has ever done. I absolutely love everything about this episode. This is an incredible episode in every way, and that's mainly because of how, for lack of a better word, term nostalgic it really is. I mean, so much history of the show comes back in this episode because this is in every way Damon's redemption hour. Really, that's what it is. Because Damon, as we know, he has his memories back, and he is flooded with guilt. Not just things that he's done now, things that he's done throughout his entire life. He's flooded with guilt for. Violet's angry with Stefan for turning into a vampire. We see in this episode. Basically he knows that he killed Tyler and things. There's so many things that he has guilt over. And Bonnie and Caroline, basically, they think Sybil is the reason that Damon is in this state. And basically, they want to do what they can to to get Damon out of it. And basically, to get him back to the way he's supposed to be. Because he's in a coma, basically, throughout this entire episode. They don't know how to do that. So they try to go into his mind, essentially, and try to, break him out of it. They realize that he's actually a zombie because it was just too much for him to handle. There was just so much guilt implemented at him at once that he just couldn't take the pressure. He just couldn't take it all. And she promises to fix him if she gets what she wants, and when they refuse, Sybil acts like they don't really have a choice. So basically, Caroline and Bonnie actually go into her mind, which is really cool to see. And there are some incredible scenes with this, because they run into Henry, who we know that Henry, this is the person that Damon saved his life of, in the Civil War, as we know. That was an incredible episode last year. The best episode of season 7, in my opinion, was the episode where we found out the relation between Damon and Henry and went into, essentially, Damon's hell. As we know what happened to Henry and everything. So we see him back in this episode. Liz comes back in this episode. And one of the big parts of this episode with the sheriff is, one, that she's not acting like the sheriff. She clearly is just a vision trying to distract Caroline because she's so not like Liz. She's not caring. She's just not Liz at all, which is very weird to see. Vicky Donovan comes back here, which, as we know, Damon bit her years earlier, so that's also something he regrets. But the biggest regret of all he has, actually, like I said, is with, Sheriff Forbes, who, as we know, Sheriff Liz Forbes was someone that he was the closest to, and that was the one person who cared about her most in her death. Besides Caroline, that's the only other person who cared. And Caroline realizes that even though she has pretty much resented Damon her entire life, she's always had this contempt for him because of the care that he had for her mother when no one else seemed to. We remember how incredible of a storyline that was for Caroline. One of the best storylines of season 6, in my opinion, was Liz's death. It was very sad to see, but we know that Caroline turned her humanity off because of it, because no one really seemed to care, and she's realizing that Damon actually did care. And seeing Margaret McIntyre get to play this role one last time was really heartbreaking. I don't know if it's going to be the last time we see her. I feel like we're definitely going to see her again in the finale, but this was an incredibly satisfying moment where Caroline realizes this. I thought that was definitely very well done. Grams comes back in this episode with Bonnie, and, basically Grams tries to give Bonnie advice and everything, and talks about how she's happy and in love with a vampire, and she finally gets to settle down, and Grams is willing to do anything for her happiness. I mean, there's some really nice moments throughout this entire episode where they go with this. I really did love everywhere they went with this episode. I thought there was some incredibly well done moments. And the other thing, of course, is Matt. Matt, as we know, he held this huge disdain for Damon because of Damon killing Tyler. That's something that Matt has completely, resented Damon for. He's tried to stay away from it at all costs, and Peter finally gets Matt to forgive him, because Matt actually wants him to kill him, actually, which was crazy to see. But he wants him to kill him because he's compelled, and it's just going to keep coming. And he begins to be his father, wanting to die a hero. He at this point wants to kill him, but finally we see not only does, he actually begs Peter to kill him, he grabs him in a chokehold as Matt says he forgives him. Damon arrives and actually knocks Matt out, which was an incredibly well done moment. And Damon actually does apologize to Matt for killing Tyler, which again was very satisfying. I didn't necessarily need it, but I really did love seeing that. I thought that was very well done. And then, of course, he does end up, finally, in this moment, even though Stefan isn't, his usual self, he forgives Stefan for all the evil he's done. He forgives Stefan for all the things that he said that he resented him for. He finally does remember to forgive him. And as we know, the entire first half of the season, Damon was never evil. He was just doing it as a way to protect his family. And finally, he's able to break that state. He finally gets to apologize to Stefan. And this finally gives Damon basically utter bliss. He finally feels relieved that he has this, guilt over him. He finally feels like, now he's back to, He's back to the main mission of trying to be like Elena, which I thought was very interesting to see. And we get this, and what I love the most about this episode, that we finally get back to Damon and Bonnie's friendship, which I absolutely love, because I will admit we have definitely been severely lacking this friendship. This friendship has been one of the best parts of the last half of the series, and that's no different here. You know, we get the scene where she's finally, she's very happy to see him. She tells him what he did under Sybil's control. It's not his fault, and he sits beside her and recites the letter that he wrote for her, and meaning that she will be the one who will make him the best man he can be, just like Elena. And he's terrified of failing them both. He tells Bonnie that she's an amazing woman, his best friend. He couldn't handle letting her down over and over again, and she tells him that it's one hell of a letter. He apologized for leaving her and that it won't happen again. It's just a really satisfying moment. And then to top it all off, we end the episode with Sybil and Celine. They end up meeting up, and neither one of them can apologize for what they've done to each other, because they just can't. I mean, there's just so much hate they have that they just can't look each other in the eye and say they're sorry. And because of that, Kate arrives announcing that they rang the bell 11 times, not for him to pay them a visit. Not only have they fulfilled their mission, but they are done in terms of Kate. You know, their mission is over and it means that their life is over. He actually kills them, they burst into flames, and that's the end of Sybil and Celine, which perfectly brings this first half of the season to a rest, and just an incredible end overall. I really did love everything about this episode. It was a long time coming. We got to see a lot of old characters we haven't seen in a long time, like Vicky Donovan. I mean, it was just crazy to see so many of these characters again. I loved what they did with this episode. There was so much regret that Damon had, but I love that we finally were able to move past that. I like that we got back to the original Damon that we all know and love, and it was great to see Ian Somerhalder finally be able to reprise that role and actually, you know, get to give us all that regret, you know, finally let Damon let go of all that regret he's always had, because he's always had so much regret in him, and finally this episode he's able to let go of all that, and I was very happy to see that happen in this episode. And now, finally, let's talk about the last episode, which is episode 11, You Made a Choice to Be Good, and I really did love this episode for the most part. I don't think it's episode 10, where the episode 10 is one of the best episodes the show has ever done. By far, it's chock full of all kinds of nostalgic stuff, and this episode is more of a regular episode of Vampire Diaries, but it is definitely one of the most well-paced episodes of the entire season. I really did love this episode overall. There's a lot of great stuff going on here. First of all, the big thing, of course, is now Cade and Stefan are officially working together, and they don't know what his real mission is. Cade immediately, already, though, he shows so much more villainous presence than Sybil and Celine do. Sybil and Celine, I thought, started off well enough, but they just became so much of an afterthought. After Cade was introduced, they just weren't nearly as threatening. You didn't really feel like these two were causing all the stuff they were. It just felt very fake, and it didn't really feel like it made much sense as to why they were doing what they did, but I was happy to see that storyline die down, because Will Parks is fantastic as this character. I really do love this character of Cade, and like Cade has said, Stefan really does not want to leave. You know, he has his humanity gone, and at this point, Stefan is ready to kill Elena, because basically Cade wants to kill Elena at this point, and he wants to harm him, and just seeing Damon finally, care about Elena again, and finally wanting to do something about it, I really did like seeing. I thought that was definitely really well done, and he tells Damon that his work isn't cutting in, that by sundown he must either kill 100 people or he's going to kill Caroline, which we know obviously is the person that Stefan cares about most, and that's what Cade has to do. So essentially we realize that basically Caroline and Damon's scheme to give the cure to Cade so they can kill him, but we know that Bonnie wants to give the cure to Enzo. So they're really kind of conflicted here. You know, Bonnie really wants to help Enzo, who's trying to complete his bucket list so he can finally take the cure, and once completed, they travel in a house she bought in New York, where she's secretly keeping Elena, we realize, which is crazy to think about, but obviously she's keeping her there because we know Elena's just sleeping. She's not actually dead, so she's keeping her in the hopes that she does in fact wake up and she has a place to stay. So basically, she gives them the dosage instead of Enzo, which we later, Kate actually later reveals his mission for Stefan was also to kill 100 people, or Elena. Not Caroline, but Elena, which Stefan is actually willing to do, again, because he has no humanity in him, and you actually believe it. Like, when he says, I'm going to kill Elena, you realize that he actually means that he's going to kill Elena, and Damon's look on his face, just realizing the guilt in him, realizing that Damon actually that Stefan actually means this, is horrifying to think about. I mean, he did a really great job with this episode. I definitely really did enjoy that. There's a lot of stuff going on here where Stefan compels Bonnie's realtor to sign the house over to herself and then invite him in so that he can get to Elena, and he eventually does get to the house. He's about to do what he can to get to Elena and basically kill her, so that way he doesn't have to kill these 100 people. You know, he can just kill Elena and then be done with it. But instead, that's not what ends up happening. Because Bonnie and Enzo, she's about to give Enzo the cure because she really wants him to be human, and they're in such a moment of, you know, pure bliss and happiness. And she even talks to Kate about how she's never really going to find anyone else like Enzo, and how she's never really going to find someone that really does care about her. I mean, she really does love Enzo. Enzo's someone, again, who was just there for her when no one else was. And finally, in this moment, we get this really sad moment where instead of Stefan killing Elena, he actually ends up killing Enzo, and Enzo's dead. Yeah, Enzo dies at the end of this episode, and not only does Enzo die, but Bonnie somehow, through this grief and through such a traumatic experience, ends up getting her powers back, and that is the way this episode ends. Really crazy stuff overall. Let's just get into this 4 episodes and where I think we're going to go from here. So really, I have to say that I think the first few episodes here were very, very repetitive. You know, we've seen them a lot of times before. Episode 9, I forgot to say, focused a lot on this whole, like, Miss Mystic Falls thing, which I really did not care that much about, you know, what was going on during the Miss Mystic Falls pageant, but overall, I really did love these last 4 episodes, and there's a lot of great stuff going on here. First of all, Bonnie killed Stefan. Bonnie did still kill Stefan, and Stefan is going to be back to not only being a vampire, but he's going to be human now, which is crazy to think about, but that is where we're going. Stefan actually is going to be, you know, he's now going to be back to good, I'm guessing. I guess he's not going to be bad anymore, but again, I don't really know. We'll have to see. I think that's definitely going to be interesting, but yeah, he's going to be human now, and I can't wait to see where they're going to go with that story. There's a lot of places they can go here. Bonnie, I mean, all this bad shit happens to Bonnie. It's throughout the entire show. Everything bad happens to Bonnie. I don't know why, but Bonnie ends up losing everything, and she just lost Enzo. And now I don't know what her purpose in the story is going to be. Now that Enzo's gone, I don't really know what's going to happen to Bonnie. I guess she's going to have to grieve over Enzo for the rest of the show. I don't know. I'm definitely not looking forward to that, but we'll have to see where that ends up going. Definitely, it's going to be very sad to see what ends up happening between Bonnie and Enzo. I don't really know what to make of that relationship, but, well, you know, now that Enzo's gone, it was very sad to see, which I feel like his death was a long time coming. People have said he should have been dead last season. I definitely agree. I think they should have killed him off in season 7, so I'm not upset that he died because it's been a long time coming, but I'm not going to lie, Bonnie and Enzo was definitely one of the high points of this season, so I was kind of sad to see him go, but again, we'll have to see what ends up happening with that. Caroline 7, I guess, are gonna they're gonna get back together, and they're going to, I guess, recompromise in their marriage. Their marriage is going to come back together, because obviously, if Seven's back to his human self, he has his humanity back, then they will, in fact, go through with the wedding, but we'll have to see the way that turns out. I think that definitely is going to be quite interesting as to where that goes. The cure's still out there. No one has taken the cure at this point, so we don't know what's going to happen there, who actually ends up taking the cure and things like that. We don't know what's going to happen there, because like I said, the cure is still out there. Cade is such a menacing presence, and I'm really loving where Cade is going here. I think just the actor who plays him is so good in this role. I can't wait to see where he ends up going in these last few episodes. Matt is the blank slate right now. I don't know where Matt is going in these last few episodes. He does this partner Dorian, who I do like this character overall, but I just don't really know where Matt is going. He hasn't had a lot to do since Peter, and I just feel like they don't really know what to do with Matt now. Matt's always felt like the character that's just here, so I don't really know where they're going to go with him. We'll have to see, but a lot of really great stuff in these 4 episodes, especially episode 10 and 11. I really did show that the show is getting back on track. You know, I think Julie Plec realizing that this is the last season, she's doing all she can to make it as satisfying as possible, and she's really just going all out and pulling out all the stops, and I'm very happy to see that the show is doing that. Between them killing off Enzo and all the returns, the show really is just doing, in my opinion, everything right. It's better than it's been in years. I really am enjoying this season overall, but now I'm going to grade each individual episode. So for season 8, episode 8, We Have History Together, I am going to give that episode a 3.5 out of 5 or a B-. It's my least favorite episode of the season, just because it's very repetitive and I've seen it a lot of times before. It's really nothing that new. For episode 9, the simple intimacy, the near touch, I am going to give a 4 to 5 or a B plus. Episode 10, Nostalgia's a Bitch, gets a solid 4.75 out of 5 or an A. One of the best episodes the show has ever done by far. And then episode 11, You Made a Choice to Be Good, I am going to give a 4.5 out of 5 or an A minus. So overall, guys, in my review, the 4 episodes of Vampire Diaries that I did miss, I know this was obviously a very long review because there was a lot to talk about, but now, guys, I am going to review episode 12 in my next video, and then I will review episode 13, I'm guessing after that, but I will definitely get those reviews out to you, definitely look forward to that, but let me know what you guys thought of these episodes, love to your thoughts on them, where do you think the show is really going to go from here, because I really don't know at this point, but that's my review, hope you guys enjoy it, we'll see you guys in my next video, which I said will be for episode 12, and we'll see you guys for that. Okay, bye.